Hi guys, welcome to Trail Talk. I'm Aaron Shimmons, your host. In this episode, we're going to talk about the World Trail Majors, which is the big news in trail running right now. They've announced this new series, 9 races, 2 to count for a championship. It's like the comeback tour of the Ultra Trail World Tour of 2021, I think it stopped, thanks to the UTMB World Series. This week, I'm joined by Brian, Troy, Ricki. We're going to dive in, give you our hot takes. We're going to mention and bring up the vote from the broadcast poll and see what you think. Are we ready for the revival? Anyway, let's get on with the show. Let's go. All right, guys, let us dive into the World Trail Majors, the big news in trail and ultra running this week. I'm not going to beat around the bush and give some long preamble. You will have heard that in the intro. So I just want to have a quick chat with the guys and get a sense of what they think of this news. You know, is it good? Is it bad? It's certainly making a lot of noise. So Brian, hit me with it. What's your initial thoughts on this without diving too deep at this stage?
Oh, I guess I'm a bit underwhelmed. For something that had a big opportunity, everybody's eyes and ears. I just think they missed the mark on the initial communication. It was a snooze fest listening to the podcasts that came out on the free trail. Finn, I think they had everybody's attention, and the red carpet was rolled out, and they showed up in some flip-flops, right? I mean, they really needed to come dressed to the nines, and they dropped the ball on it. I'm underwhelmed, but again, holding out for more information to come out and to be released. It's exciting, gives us something new to talk about, but overall, just a little underwhelmed, I guess. So, Troy, what do you got? What's your high-level view here?
I'm excited. I mean, I like the overall concept of what they're trying to create. I mean, I think to touch on your point, Wolfie, when you got to get 9 heads in the room and everyone's got to be on the same page, you just everything kind of gets dumbed down just a little bit, as opposed to, just, I don't know, contrasting that against like a single entity that can really be in charge of their communications. Yeah, I like that this is completely different than what we've seen. And there was a lot of chatter, coming to my DMs of people like not really understanding the concept and wanting to think like, oh, what's the major race? What's the marquee event? Like what does it all lead up to? And, for me, I really I think they're taking a page out of the World Marathon Majors, obviously. And the idea here is to continue to grow and create prestige around the individual event by aligning, these 9 races and likely a handful more. I do believe that was a kind of, they did a decent job of saying like, hey, this may not be the only 9 races that are going to be a part of the series. But to try to create prestige, let the races retain their individualism, create like a cultural event for runners to go and experience around the world at all these different locations. I think they've done a good job of spreading the races out into all 4 corners of the globe. To be determined, like I do resonate with what Brian is saying as far as like just feeling underwhelmed, and the iron was really, really hot, and I think they did the best that they could. I do know that a lot of people were intrigued, and there was a lot more questions, I think, than answers for the community, and that, I mean, to me, that's kind of a good thing, like it gives them time to really hold the attention. So, Ricki, what are your thoughts there?
To be determined is what I think as well, because I don't fully understand what they're trying to do. I get it to a certain extent, but I don't really get it, as in I don't know exactly what they're doing, as in how somebody wins such a event or something like that. On the other hand, it is cool. There's some cool races in it. There's like a bucket list of races that I personally would like to do, but I'm still a bit confused on what they're trying to do. Are they trying to compete with UTMB? Are they making a world marathon majors kind of race to bring more people into it? I don't really understand it fully because it's so spread out, and there's still a lot to be determined, I think.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because it's not, they're not trying to get more race entries, because all of their events are already at capacity or close to capacity. There's 9 races. Thinking back to the UTWT, there was 20 in that, and these 9 were mostly part of that as well. I sort of get this feeling that from listening to the podcast, the Free Trail, the single track, reading the iRunFar article, and then some of the commentary on X, this sort of feels more like a small business networking group, where all of these events have each other's back, and they're going to learn from each other, and they're going to help each other, and they've all got the shared values, incidentally, values that we kind of would expect from events and organizers. But I'm not sure how it's going to kind of progress the sport. It feels like we missed this part of the Ultra Trail World Tour, and we want to bring this camaraderie factor back for the organizers. But I'm not sure what else this really means. Either it's a half-baked idea or something else. But as you say, Ricki, to be determined. At a later date. They say that this was not rushed out because of the UTMB Whistler thing, and it's been 9 months in the making. Well, I mean, I probably would have taken another month or so and got prize money and all of these other things involved, reached out to more events, etc. Because, we hear that other events are contacting saying, how can we be part of this, or what's the deal here? So I don't know. It feels a little bit rushed. They're saying it's not related to UTMB Whistler, but it kind of feels like it might be. Ricki, what are the races there, just out of interest, that interest you? I know there's a few that I'm interested in as well.
Yeah, for me, Hong Kong 100, that looks like a really cool race. It's a race I wanted to do when it was part of the Ultra Trail World Tour. And I just thought it was something cool because I heard there's like 1 million steps in it. And I don't know, for some strange reason, I think I'd love to do that. I don't know why. It'd probably be horrible because it's like smashing your quads. But it's it's meant to be a really cool race. And then you have Ultra Trail Cape Town, which I think is another fun race that I'd love to do. And then I think the Canyons 100 is the new out and back route, which I've heard on a couple of other podcasts that's meant to be an epic route if they go with that route. I imagine that's the one they're going to be going with, that new out and back route that they were trying to do a couple of years ago, but they couldn't just work it out.
Yeah, Ricki. And then just to clarify, I think you're talking about the Black Canyons Ultra out there here in Arizona. So fantastic race. Certainly something that is a cool Arizona classic. But for me, I mean, the announcement of this World Trail Major Series doesn't do anything to move my interest to participate in any of these races any more than it did previously, which was zero. Because all this has done is created, I think, a vacation destination series for the affluent mid-pack racer. I don't know that the elites are all that quite excited with the information that was released as of now. So your mid-pack guy, your amateur runner with maybe 7 to 15 grand to travel in comfort to these exotic destinations. Yeah, that's great. They've got now some sort of like World Trail major moniker to hang their hat on as well. But I also take issue with the naming of itself. I feel like when you call yourself the World Trail Major Series, you should be earning that title, not self-anointing it to yourself. Because if you took a poll of anybody, the top trail races that would be categorized as majors, I don't know which race from the WTM would ping first, but I don't know if it's even in the top 5 of known races that would be identified as majors. So that's one of the issues I have. But yeah, as far as participating in these races, this announcement did nothing for me because, again, financially, they're out of reach for me. Troy, what do you got? You scrounged together your shillings, your pounds, your whatever it is you got over there?
Well, I can
Oh,
tell
you're
you,
American. You got dollars.
yeah, I can tell you, I don't got any quids to put toward this trip, But I've always wanted to run Trans Gran Canaria. I've always wanted to run. It used to be Ultra Trail Mount Fuji, and now it's just the Mount Fuji 100. I've always wanted to visit Japan. I would love to run, the Madeira Island Ultra Trail. I think like all 3 of those events and all 3 of those routes it's a bucket list. They're all bucket list events, and they have their own kind of cachet as far as like how hard they are, the destination that you're going to. But I mean, like you, Brian, I don't see myself jumping on an airplane with my entire family and taking them on an ultra running vacation anytime soon. That being said, like, I totally get it. I think this is, and it is similar to the world majors for marathons. Like, a lot of people, they spend, for one, just getting into some of those events, some of the marathon events is really difficult to do. Even with New York, I think has like 80,000 participants. Is there still a lottery? I don't know. Like, I just know that these events can run tens of thousands of people, and there's still a lot of people trying to get in, and it's not a guaranteed if you're actually going to get into any one of those events. And so the ability to get all 6 of them in the bag, that's a very impressive accomplishment. Brian, you make a good point. Like, you have to work really hard to get into a world marathon major, like really, really hard. In this instance, all you really need to do is like be on top of the sign up when it's time to sign up, right? I don't think many of these events have lotteries. That being said, you just need to be able to shell it out to show up. And I think there's plenty of people in the community that are willing to travel to go see epic destination races. And I think plenty of people that, they look at like, what's the one trip I'm going to go on this year, and this becomes something that is attainable for those individuals, as opposed to, I don't want to play the comparison game with UTMB, but like, you got to work hard to get into UTMB. Like, if you want to go to Chamonix, you got to show up. I think on average, you got to run. You need 11 stones. I think someone said that I think that was mentioned either in a previous episode or I've heard that somewhere else. 7, 6 gets you a good like, it gives you a good chance of getting into the event, but that means you still have to run 2 UTMB events just to try to get enough stones to qualify. In this scenario, you can say, hey, I want to go visit South Africa next year. That's my bucket list for the year. I'm just going to sign. For the most part, I think you can just sign up for Ultra Trail South Africa. Same with like Mount Fuji, same with all these events allow you to run, hundreds of runners, if not close to 1,000 runners. So, there's space. And if you can afford to do it, like this makes those destinations, maybe it makes them just a little more appealing. And I think there's something to be said about having events that align around culture, that, like Aaron, you said, it's like a networking group for RDs. So this allows all these RDs to share resources, figure out what's the best way to communicate their needs, and ultimately provide a really awesome experience for trail and ultra runners. And ultimately that's what's going to keep people coming back. And that's what's going to grow our sport, is the ability to provide an epic experience. And I think that if they can play their cards correctly, I think the world I think this organization, can do it. I think they can provide an experience that people want to keep going back for, and they can just add a new race every single year onto the calendar and make it kind of a lifetime goal to complete all of them. So, Ricki, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, like that's exactly what I'd be thinking. I'd be thinking like, okay, my dream race is get into Western States, but it's a lottery, and I might never get into it. And by the time I do get into it, I'll be slow and old, and it won't be as much fun then. Whereas then right now, I can go and do Black Canyons Ultra, so I have a chance to go and race in America in not just any race, a really, really good race, a really, really cool race, a really prestigious race, So I think that's what's very cool about this. Now, again, to be determined what happens with the competitive side of it and all that, because like the reason why Western States is such a dream race for me is because of all the history behind it and the winners and the top 10 and how competitive it is and how many pro athletes get there. And like that's the draw to it, right? That's like, I want to race in a race with all those guys. Just like in the marathon world majors, you want to go and do the races that all the top marathon runners are running in, because you might have a chance of like meeting them or seeing them or just been there the day that they break a world record or a course record. So again, like it's to be determined on how cool and how great they make this.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, first off, I think you may have nailed it and given something that I had never thought about, that the WTM, doesn't it really roll off the tongue? No, it kind of is like the vacation list of races for the trail running demographic that mid-30s to mid-50s, I don't know, has big disposable income for their sport and their hobbies and stuff. So I think you may have hit the nail on the head with that one. I kind of like that take, and it sort of feels right. But moving on from that, for this to be successful, like think about the UTWT. There was 20 races. You had to it was, I think, 3 or 4 races over a 36-month period was what qualified you or got you. It was your best results over those that got you a placing in the standings. And in the last couple of years of that, Courtney and Pau Capel, they won, and I think Pau won with like 4 wins. Mozart 100, Patagonia 100. I forget the other 2 races. Maybe Trans Gran Canaria. Maybe that was one.
Andy Glaze checking in from the west coast of California, where I just surpassed 6,500 miles for the year and climbed 625,000 feet of vert. So it's been a good year so far. Still have a little over a month to go. We'll see if we can break 7,000 miles. This weekend I'll be running my second only marathon. Not a big marathon runner. Lots of ultras, but helping my wife run a marathon from Big Bear to Redlands, California. So that'll be an interesting road experience. I know this is trail talk, but occasionally I guess we have to pound the pavement.
But how does this series become something that attracts a Courtney or a Pau Capel? Surely it's not going to attract them best 2 out of 9. Like, that seems ridiculous. Okay, carbon footprint and all of that stuff, we get that. We're all, doing our bit for the environment as much as we're able, as much as we know. But 2 out of 9 isn't a championship. What do you think, Brian?
These are professional athletes, so the money's going to have to talk. And if it's not going to be prize pool money, it's going to have to be sponsor influenced or motivated, some type of appearance fee. Because there's other major races that are on the calendar that really compete with these other races that are part of this series. And this series is going to become second rate. So if you don't get into your Western States, if you don't get into Hard Rock, if you're not, qualified for UTMB, this series then all of a sudden becomes appealing. But for you to make this your primary A goal, financially, something's going to have to show up in a meaningful way if you have those other race opportunities that are more identified as true majors in our sport. So I don't know what would get somebody like Jim or Courtney to bypass their prime years at UTMB Chamonix and Western States and Hard Rock for any one of these races. Troy, I mean, what do you got on that?
I mean, the money's going to talk in this situation. So, whether it's Solomon saying, hey, if you're a Solomon athlete and you show up to, there's a Solomon sponsored race in there. I think it's, is it Ultra Trail Cape Town? No. Anyway, there's one race. It's like, there's a race that's a Hoka race, Black Canyon. Hoka's going to say, you guys are all showing up to Black Canyon because Hoka's got to bring home the win at this World Trail Major, right? And they're going to dictate that. And I think this is an opportunity for the professional athletes to align with the brands for a conversation to be had about where they want to deploy their resources and where they're going to make the best bang for their buck from a like supporting their athletes to go do certain things. And I think it's cool that, so I think Black Canyon and Jamil are kind of the linchpin here, because what they're going to provide is besides UTMB, they are at the cutting edge of producing live stream events. And I think what they're going to end up bringing to the table is now we're going to have 9 events over the course of a year that are going to be live streamed, because that's how the brands are going to feel like they're getting the recognition, right? Like that has to be the trajectory that they're trying to move this into. In order to get the cachet, in order to bring the provenance to these events, and in order to like create a way of either getting eyes on the races, getting more brand money support, being able to create a pool to pay the athletes. I mean, at the end of the day, I think to answer your question, Brian, how do you get Jim and Courtney to show up? You have a prize purse that's like, it's an offer they can't refuse. These guys will win anything they put their minds to. So if you're going to show up to a race and, you're going to get an extra a bump from your sponsor and they got 10K on the line or 20K on the line, and that's what you can win to cross the finish line and win one of these majors, like, I think the pros line up in droves. And I think I hate to say it, I think the pros have been waiting for an opportunity to get paid for their performances, and maybe they can pull it together. Maybe they can't. Aaron, I definitely have seen you shaking your head, so I want to give you the opportunity to put it out there. But like I said, I think the live streaming these events and having some serious money for the pros to win this event, each individual event, and then have like something really big at the end for the ranking system. I think that's how you get the pros to show up. And where the pros go, the sport will follow. So
listen, let me jump in here. It's more than what Black Canyons has to offer. Great race. But I would say at the top of its list of, features or qualities is competitiveness. It's super competitive because it's a golden ticket race. It's also like a season opener. It's by Aravaiba. They put on amazing events. They stream amazing events. As you say, they're class leading in that sense. But it takes more than that to attract a Courtney. Like, could you really think Courtney's going to go and do Black Canyon's 100K? I don't see it. You've got competitiveness, you've got prestige, which is something which is like there's variable. There's lots of things contribute to prestige. History of competition, location, lots of these things. And races on this series definitely have some or multiple of these qualities that make them prestigious events. But you've also got prize money, and what sort of prize money are Aravaipa putting on? I'm not sure. What's the prize money for Javelina? Brian, you were Javelina. There was massive numbers at that event. All right, yeah. Okay, I see you. So, there's lots of things which make an event that's going to attract the best of the best to compete. And it's not just, they're going to win a World Trail Majors championship or money. It's a combination of all of those things. Like, I bet Kilian doesn't care what sort of money he makes as a prize. I would say probably top of his list right now is exposure for normal and competitiveness of a race, because he wants to test himself and he wants to push his brand forward. So there's there's lots of things from an event to get right. The athletes are all thinking about this in different ways too, but for this series to work, they need big money to come in. And Black Canyons has Hoka, Hong Kong 100K has Vibram, Ultra Trail Cape Town has, I think they're sponsored by a bank. I think they're also the only race in the series that's sponsored by a non-endemic sponsor. But my point here is they need like a Volvo or BMW and Audi to come in with a sponsorship of the series. Doesn't get in the way of a Hoka, a Salomon, whoever. Bring in the big money like they do with like the Free Ride World Tour in the snow world, and that's how this is going to get elevated. With that sort of sponsor, you've got TV will be climbing all over it. So look, Ricky, you're up. What do you got on that?
I was saying, I was swinging, like, bring it in like the golf, have a big BMW sponsor or something like that, like what you said. But when I first saw this drop, I thought of it like on a personal level. I looked at it like that was a way in for a non-elite athlete to do really well in some big races, because they won't get the big pros. That's the way I was looking at, where a sort of like a very good non-elite athlete could win some of these races and raise his profile and then become a professional athlete. That's kind of the way I was looking at it. It was almost like a stepping stone to get recognized by big brands and then be pushed in towards UTMB. That's what it felt like to me, that it was just like a stepping stone for non-elites, because I can't see them, because it's been said that there's no big prize money yet, and they're thinking about doing that down the line. But that's so what does that mean? Like, what, in like 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, in 9 months' time, in 2 years' time? Who knows when they're going to start bringing big money? And if they don't start bringing big money, they're not going to get big names. So for me, it's just like a little stepping stone for non-elites to go pro.
Yeah, you're probably bang on with that, but if you think back to the Ultra Trail World Tour, like the top level athletes, let's call them like the top 10 contenders or the top 10 placers in UTMB events, they were doing these races as training races. Along the way, they were picking up points in this series over a 36-month period to win a potential Ultra Trail World Tour title. So he won it in 2020 and 2021, something like that. Those were the years that he was kicking ass. Wasn't 2019 the year he won UTMB? Was it 2019? I don't know. I should know this type of thing, but those were training races for him. Like, that's the level that these guys are at, that they're going and running 20-hour UTMBs. They're also going and doing 2, 3, 4 100Ks throughout the year. I know I can't do that. So, I think what we're going to see is the mid packers, the backpackers doing this as vacation races. We're going to see the elites doing some of these races as training races along the way. But it's never going to be elevated to more than this unless some big money comes into this from outside of the sport. What's up, Troy?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I think what Jamil brings to the table with what they've done at Black Canyon is a wealth of knowledge on how to make sure that there is really good live stream coverage for the other events that are part of the tour. And I'm wondering when, not the tour, sorry, of the World Trail Majors. And I think that's a big part of the marketing funnel, not just for the middle of the pack, but to showcase how you bring in that endemic sponsorship too. So I think that's just like a big piece is, how are you going to get someone like Audi or Rolex to cut the check? Like, show them that, for one, this is their dream customer, you know, the trail ultra trail running demographic is definitely their dream customer, and then show them the number of eyes that are seeing it. So but I agree with you, like someone's got to be able to write a pretty big check here and stand behind it for a year or two in order to see wheels on this thing. So
Yeah, like, Brian, let me bring you in a second, but I just want to comment. Yes, Aravaipa do the best live streaming and that type of thing, and the community gets behind it, jumps in the chat. It's good. The sport needs to move on from that, as in it needs to take the next step. And whenever the organizer of the World Trail Masters the chair seems to be held by Hong Kong 100, and Debo asked them on the Free Trail podcast about streaming and this type of thing. And I think the response was something along the lines of, "Oh, we're not very good at that type of thing." I mean, it sounded like I was asking my dad how to do something in Excel. Like, I was like, oh my God, is this what's leading the charge? So it does not fill me with hope. Look, if Aravaipa were going to take the lead and say, we will lead the media strategy, then that is a winning solution. Brian, what's up?
Yeah, I think I was just going to bring up a point here as far as our sport constantly diluting its own talent. I mean, it's the sport that eats its own in its sense, because, again, we're talking about two different aspects of the sport. We're talking about the tip of the spear, the guys that we love watching race on the professional level. And then we're talking about the guys like us, except Ricky, who's a badass in his own right, that just get out there and have, you know, these memorable experiences, right? And I think UTM is trying to serve the average Joe, but also trying to validate or elevate itself by half-heartedly extending an olive branch to the professionals. We need a trail series to come along that makes no apologies or concessions for the professionals. Until we do that, we don't have a true professional series that compares to any other sport that's out there. You know, I'm tired of everybody talking about the professionalization of the sport, and then when we get into conversations or get press releases on new trail series, they prioritize their values, insulating the RDs. I mean, we're talking about like a third or fourth tier priority as they finally get into the professional side of what they're going to bring to the table. And it does feel like, you know, I'll give them credit. They were putting this plan into action for 9 months, but I think they saw an opportunity with the UTMB fiasco to come in and get some excitement. And this was not the ideal way to release everything to the public. So they did rush this. They didn't plan, I think, to release it when they did, but they were trying to strike while UTMB was down. So what do you guys think? I mean, is this good for the sport as it tries to professionalize, or is this a net loss?
I mean, it's they have the right intentions, but they haven't fully baked it. That's my simple take. What about you, Ricky? What do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say what Brian said about like that they had a great idea and they said they were planning it for like 9 months, which is great, yeah. But they probably should have planned it a little bit better or for a little bit longer. But they jumped on the fact that UTMB dropped the ball, and they were like trying to like get in while UTMB was down, but it's not ready because the four of us are talking about the fact that this isn't ready and that's not ready and money's not there and how are they going to get the pros there. I don't think they even know the answers to them because they rushed it. So they shouldn't have rushed it. They should have just waited until they had a complete package and then released it. But that's marketing. They wanted to push the marketing while UTMB was down.
Yeah. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, as someone who's had to do a lot of biz dev in his life, you know, there's no telling what kind of irons are in the fire back there with the WTM. Hopefully some of our questions are answered, and maybe we're all eating our lunch like in 2 weeks when they release like what the prize purse is going to look like, and everything really gets flushed out. But I do agree. I think not really having like a detailed, this is the ranking system. This is exactly how you're going to rank. This is exactly how you're going to rank as a pro to win the thing. not actually knowing what the numbers are going to be for the final prize purse. All those things are like, I don't want to call them red flags, but it's questionable for me. And I, for one, I like this. I really think that it's a step in a different direction. And I think that change is good. I think it creates a level of competition with the other series that are out there, but it's definitely not on even playing fields, because we're talking about a pyramid scheme versus like a flat ranking system. But I think competition is good. I think it's only going to create some elevation for the sport. I don't think that the dilution of the pros, like I have an agree to disagree situation there. And I kind of I think in America, we want to see everything funnel toward the World Series. We want to see everything funnel toward the Super Bowl. We want to see everything move toward this like big, grand final event that seals the deal. And honestly, like, I like to look at, if you look at golf or you look at soccer, right? Golf has all these masters or majors or what, I don't even know what they call them, but like, yeah, there's one or two that I think probably have a little more prestige than the other. But if you're a golfer and you win one of the majors, like, it's a big deal for you, and it's a big deal for the sport, and it's a big deal like on that day. If you look at soccer has like so many leagues. Every country has their own league. If you're the winner in your country, it's a big deal. They have a handful of different they have a handful of different scenarios where they bring different countries together to compete against each other. Like, that just happens like throughout the season for soccer, and it's not just this like one thing. Yeah, they have multiple leagues, and it's, we're arguably talking about like two sports with huge sponsorship dollars, huge participation from a soccer standpoint. And then with golf, they have ridiculous endemic sponsors. So like, while I'm comparing apples to oranges here, like, you can have multiple models as long as you have the capital to back the professional athlete to drive the growth of the sport. So
come on, Brian, let's hear you.
My God. I mean, he's just showing himself to not be a true sports fan across all genre of sport. Soccer club fans are rabid about their teams. I mean, there's champions awarded at every club level, national level. You have the World Cup. In golf, yes, you have identified majors that nobody disputes the validity of the majors. You're proving my point again. I love when you guys do this, right? Like golf and football, over, as they say over there, they have these identified championships established. Everybody knows on what day and time and what location the best team's going to be crowned that season. Why don't we start with the North American Trail Series? Why do we have to jump straight to global and spread out 9 races across all corners of the country or all over the globe in countries that people couldn't even point out on a map? Why don't we start smaller and build out an actual well-defined North American trail race series, and then maybe put one in Europe, right? Have European professional trail series. Now we have identified races that we know are on the calendar every year. Instead, what do? We start big and we put these races all over like a Where's Waldo map of who's going to be racing where. I don't agree with anything you said, Troy. I think our sport has done a massive failure to their fans to try and create a professional landscape where we can understand where our best athletes are performing and who's going to be crowned that year.
Look, I think, if you think about all championships, there is a finale. And UTMB World Series has a finale. And it would feel even more like a natural finale if it didn't exist long before the series. So it's kind of like there's this mind shift, but new people coming into the sport will just say, oh, they race their way to this finale and then they race there and it's the best in the world. Whereas, I come from before that and it's weird reshaping it into that model. But that's definitely what the World Trail Majors lacks. There needs to be a showdown. That's like the series builds excitement. The funnel of excitement goes to like this showdown at the end of the season, and counting points over a year, a season, or whatever it is, 2 of 9 races is just like, it's boring. Like, the fan won't even bother tuning into that. You know, we're going to look and see, you know, the like Ultra Trail Cape Town, unbelievable coverage last year, probably the best coverage out of all of those races in that list, bar Black Canyons. But we'll tune into that, but we won't be thinking, oh, such and such won the race and he's taken the lead in the World Trail Majors. It just sounds like it's comical. I think. Well, Ricky, what do you think about that? The whole like finale scenario.
Yeah, I'm going back to Robbins Gary winning the World Series, because that's kind of how relative it'll be. Yeah, as in we won't probably know who won it or really care who won it, because it's a bit Mickey Mouse. It's Mickey Mouse, like it's because they're doing it like it's 2 out of 9 races. I can't understand that at all. So like, let's say loads of athletes like win 2 out of 9 races, then what happens? Then do they go into a final between them like Ninja Warrior or something? Is it something like that? Like I don't really get it. Like, so yeah, underwhelmed is the word for that, I think. Yeah.
And that's it. It comes back to the original point. Like, this doesn't feel like it's well thought out, because even that point that you're bringing up, what if 10 people won 2 races, or well, not 10 obviously, but what if 5 people, you know, won races? Who does it? Is it the first person to win? Is it count back? Is it next best result? You know, first off, it needs to be at least 3. I mean, 3 is the minimum. 2 is like 2 races. I mean, I could do 2 of those races and still do UTMB in a season. They need to be given a bigger challenge than 200 Ks, and you're crowned a majors champion. But look, let's just check. We did a poll on the Instagram broadcast channel. Is trail running ready for our UTWT revival? And we had the majority of people, I'm going to say 90% say hell yeah, and 3 with FUTMB. So there was probably some double voting there, which is possible. And yeah, not even a recognizable number, really small number of we have enough. But, you know, what we're reading from this is, hell yeah, we're excited for something to come around that's doing a better job than UTMB. But now that all of this kind of news has come out, we've digested it, the thing that I'm coming back to is, you know what? I actually like the UTMB World Series, and the thing that I just want is for them to have been better, done a better job, been more respectful to the community, and especially in those North American races. I mean, from what I can see in Europe, we haven't had those same issues. I can only think back to the Val d'Aran race last year, where there was some issues, and I know that maybe there's been some cost saving at some of the aid stations over the past season as well in Europe. But we just, personally, I kind of just want UTMB to be better, be more in line with the community's thoughts and feelings, and then that's kind of maybe all that we need. Well, Brian, is that even something that we could agree on?
Absolutely, I agree. I think UTMB is the entity that's most well positioned with the resources capable to provide the race series that I want as a fan, and the story. So, Troy, how are you going to disagree?
I mean, I don't, honestly. Like, I think if UTMB would just taken a step back and realized how they needed to proceed with the community and really understood the culture. And when I say UTMB, I really mean Ironman, because I agree with Aaron. I think it's what's happening over here on my side of the pond that is very frustrating to me. And I think, you know, I can tell you, like, I mean, this is a Hoka thing because they do it at all their events. Like, I could go my entire life without seeing another, like, big Hoka blow up banner coming into an aid station, those like pillars that they put up. Like there's some things that I don't like about like the amount of crazy branding that goes on at some of the UTMB events. And I saw it firsthand with the difference between old school grindstone and new school grindstone. But the event was top notch. I really enjoyed myself. I totally think that it really comes down to like, I don't want to be the pariah that's like throwing UTMB on the fire. I want to stand true to a culture that I fell in love with when I got into the sport. And I feel like the more I see Ironman implementing the playbook that they have, the more I see them putting a stranglehold on our culture. And that's what infuriates me. And so like, I can't disagree with you guys. I can just say like, I agree. I wish they would have done better, because at some point, I mean, are we not just going to tune in? I mean, who's not watching the live? I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like my one of my favorite days is Statesmas to watch the live stream. And then like a month later, 6 weeks later, we get to watch UT. I mean, it's like the summer is amazing for me as someone that can't travel to a lot of races to get to watch all these things happen and unfold. And I love where the sport's going with bringing the content to the runner, and for us to really see these places and experience them firsthand and stoke the fire of wanting to be there. I just really want something that aligns more with like what I believe the culture of ultra running is. And that's kind of where I think World Trail Majors, that's what they're trying to hold on to. And I appreciate that. I do see it's a bit half baked. But in a perfect world, like I would love to see both exist, and I would love to see both thrive. And I think that if I'll come back to the experience, if both entities can provide a quality experience that holds up the culture of the sport, that sticks to the values they say that they have, then I think we see growth in the sport. I think there's a place for both of these models to exist and coexist. And I think there's plenty of talent to make these races exciting over the years. So, you know, Ricky, yeah, where you at, brother?
Yeah, like I would leave it on something like this, where I don't think either of my two American friends on this chat have been to a UTMB, right? A UTMB week, whereas me and Aaron have, right? And it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable scene. It's an unbelievable week. And I think that a lot of people that might have been on the fence about saying, oh, I don't like Ironman and I don't like UTMB, if they got to UTMB week, they would understand why it's so big and why it's so huge and why it's going to be very, very hard for this to work against UTMB. Because for me, as an athlete, I want to be at UTMB every year because it's just massive. It's like the finale to a massive year. It's such a spectacle, and I think it's going to be very, very hard for this World Trail Tour thing to kick off when you still have so many people wanting to go and enter into UTMB.
Yeah, you know, Troy, your point, you've hit the nail on the head there. This is Ironman. It doesn't feel like it's UTMB, but either way, we need them to do better. The time has run out for them to do better. It's opened the door for the World Trail Majors, and they've come out of the blocks with with something that's not good enough either. You know, they've nailed the values. It's like those values are like a baseline. You know, respect, local community, diversity. Yeah, we expect that in almost everything that we do in life as responsible, like modern people. I don't know what the way to put that, but it's just, it doesn't feel like it's as well thought out as we need it to be. Brian, anything to close it out?
No, I think we've covered it all well. I'm surprised we even milked out 48 minutes talking about the World Trail Majors, as they're calling themselves. So let's just put the nail in the coffin and I guess open it up again when we've got some news talking about the prize pool.
Anyone else?
Brian, man, I love this, you going before me, man. Like I just and I love getting roasted by you too. So let's just keep on swinging, brother. I love it. So I can't believe you dropped the World Trail Miners on the show, dude. Like Respect.
Anything from you, Ricky?
Nah, just show me the money, I think,
Show Ricky the money. That's what we'll close it out on. Look, let's see where this goes over the next couple of months. We have Hong Kong 100 in, is it January, February, and
January.
After the bits and pieces that they're hearing the community throw back at them, let's see if we hear something on prize money over the next fortnight. They replied to me on X, actually, whenever I posted up a meme, which we'll stick on the screen, and said, sit tight, we're gonna announce something on prize money. So, I mean, why couldn't you have announced it already? Announce it when you're making the big splash, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, look, thanks for tuning in. It's been a fun one, and we'll see you next week for episode 4. First off, thank you for making it to the end of the show. We appreciate you watching, liking, commenting, interacting with us in the chat. Thank you so much. Let us know in the comments, what do you think of the World Trail Majors, the WTM, more like WTF. Anyway, let us know down below, what do you agree and disagree with? Also, hit that subscribe, hit the like, share it with a friend, do all that stuff that you know is going to help out the show reach a bigger part of our community. Anyway, guys, we'll see you in episode 4. Peace!